KCF Technologies presents Industrial Transformation, Stories of Failure and Success from the Frontlines of American Manufacturing.
Welcome back. This is the Industrial Transformation Podcast. I'm Jeremy Frank, and we are talking with a series of innovators who are driving change, and we'll now be taking a bit of a focus into companies and leaders that specifically serve the auto manufacturing sector. And with us today is Christina Keller, who is the CEO of Cascade Engineering, a company employing almost 2,000 employees, focused on large part plastic injection molding in the auto industry, specifically with niches in truck and bus applications. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you for having me.
Did I capture your introduction properly?
Absolutely.
Great. Anything you'd add? Can you tell us a little bit about Cascade Engineering? And then I'd like to hear a lot about you.
Sure, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we have a number of employees across North America and Europe. Our key areas are in Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, Texas, and Budapest, Hungary. And we have a diversified product offering largely in the large tonnage injection molding capabilities with presses up to 9,000 tons, which is one of the largest in the world. In addition, we have the capability to compound our own TPO blends for custom applications, and we have our own products in the material handling and waste area. We're a family business. We've been around for about 47 years. We're in the second generation, and we're focused on the long-term health of our company and our communities. We're a triple bottom line organization, which means we focus on people, planet, and profit, and we publish a triple bottom line report every year. And we're also a women-owned business, with 2 women and 1 African-American male in our Office of the President as our senior executive team. And we're a certified B Corporation. And we use this process as a platform for measuring and improving our metrics related to people and planet.
Fantastic. And those are some of the things that really sparked our interest in connecting, is a shared interest in some of those triple bottom line focus areas. But can you tell us, I want to get into that, but can you tell us first just a little bit about your career trajectory and how you ended up how you rose to the role of CEO at Cascade?
Absolutely. So my background includes undergrad at Boston College, an MBA from Cornell, and my Six Sigma Black Belt from Villanova University. After school, I worked in New York City and Washington, D.C. In various roles as a consultant before settling back into West Michigan. And I've been at Cascade Engineering since 2010. Outside of Cascade, I'm also on the board of directors for Independent Bank, which is a publicly traded bank board, Paragon Diet Engineering, and our local economics club. So my career trajectory at Cascade, I actually did 2 summer internships back in the 90s, one with our Cascade Cart Solutions and one in our HR team. And I joined Cascade, and as I mentioned, in 2010 as a project manager. I went from being a project manager at Polaris in New York to a product manager at Cascade Engineering. And I helped them raise about $1 million for a startup product in the social entrepreneurship space. And then when the role became available for the president of CK Technologies, I took that role and went on to lead our Grand Rapids business unit, and then became the CEO about 2 years ago.
Fantastic. So, and you mentioned you're a family-owned business, but that's not you don't have roots in the family of the business. You're basically have risen to the leadership role based on your work growing out of a product management or a project management role.
Well, and I do hope that it's a both and, but I am a member of the family business from the family perspective as well.
Oh, I see. Okay, great. Well, that's great. So let's dive right in. I mean, I think this triple bottom line is something that I think some people have familiarity with. In fact, I have a good friend who runs a B corporation, and although my company KCF, we haven't certified, we share a lot of those values. Can you just talk with us a little bit about what that means to you? What it is that why you're a triple bottom line company and what that means to you?
Absolutely. And when I define kind of triple bottom line and sustainability, I really think about it as looking at the long term. And when you do that, the social and environmental factors really come naturally into focus, and you start to see all of your stakeholders, not just your shareholders. I think it's you can't outpace your communities or outpace your employees for any long period of time. And so I think one of the benefits of being a family owned business is that we're thinking generationally and not just the next 3 to 5 years or the next quarter financial returns. And so I think it becomes more natural as you look at that. I also think we talk about it as a triple whammy in my industry in terms of millennials finding work that is engaging for them. Manufacturing ranks dead last in terms of what high schoolers want to go into. It's got a perception that it's a dirty industry, that it's not very interesting, and 52% of teenagers had no interest at all in a manufacturing career. However, when they're exposed to manufacturing, the perception improves, and they're able to see some of the opportunities like robotics, 3D design, and Industry 4.0. But the estimated labor shortage in manufacturing nationwide is expected to be around 3.5 million jobs as baby boomers retire and millennials lack interest in coming into this field. So I think it's a both and. We're involved in sustainability because it's the right thing to do. To think about it, but it's also an important thing for us as a manufacturer to continue to look at how we can get people engaged into our industry when it's not as vibrant and new as some of the other industries that are attracting millennials.
Right, or at least that's perception. That's amazing. 52% have, you said 52% have no interest.
No interest in manufacturing career. And manufacturing ranks dead last among Generation Y in a recent poll that they did when they ranked 7 different factors. It was the lowest, 7 out of 7. So
That's wild. I believe it, although it's funny. I think your perspective is probably similar to mine, that if they only knew how cool it was, it would be very different. I interviewed Justin Schwartz is the Dean of Engineering at Penn State, which is where we are, just about a month ago. And he talked about this. He actually had a series of videos commissioned for all the different schools of engineering. And the basic purpose was to just counteract that same phenomenon that you're talking about, which is that, it's a lot cooler than you think, and it's fun, and it's high tech, and it's pretty amazing what goes on.
Absolutely. And in that same poll, they said that perception improves when they're exposed to manufacturing from ranking at 7 out of 7 to 3 out of 7. So it is truly a perception thing, unfortunately. And I think, as we talk about Industry 4.0 and how big that is for the future, I mean, I love statistics and data, and the idea that, we're able to use that to drive action. It's quite interesting and quite exciting to be in manufacturing, but it still has that perception of, the black coal on your face and working long hours and just a dead end job. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's one of the purposes of this. I mean, those workforce issues that you alluded to, shortage of millions of workers that are needed. We're very much in the thick of that, as you are. Can you talk? I mean, so, our company's totally focused on Industry 4.0, or at least, we just align ourselves with that term. That's it's just one of the terms, but it's just, transforming industry, making factories healthier, more productive, safer, using technology. How does Cascade interface with Industry 4.0?
Yes, absolutely. We have 2 different ways primarily that we interface with Industry 4.0. One is through smart products that we produce, and the other one is through smart processes and the way that we produce our products. And so in the smart products area, we have we make over 40 million roll to the cart trash and recycle containers. You probably have one of our products in your garage today, but we've worked on ruggedizing RFID tags and embedding those in the cart so that we can work with haulers to incent recycling programs and optimize waste routes. which is one of the areas in which we've made our product smart. We also have bins and pallets, and we've worked with embedded RFID tags on that for improving material handling. And we're even looking at embedding rugged sensors so that you can sense during the supply chain if there's been an interruption of heat-cool cycles. This type of technology could be utilized for the vaccine as they're getting that out to make sure that it's staying in the ambient conditions, et cetera. So we're working on those smart bins and pallets. Then finally, on the product side is jumping on the EV trend with our automotive products, making battery cases and fluid connectors for the next generation of vehicles. And then from the smart processes perspective, we're continued internally focused on smart manufacturing, but lean processes are really the key. And what I always say too is any tech solution is only as good as the process in which it overlies. And so if you have an inefficient process and you make it more smart, if you make it more efficient, you could end up with a more complex system than not. And so I think it's exciting to see some of the things come to fruition. And the upsides, I believe, of Industry 4.0 in our business is that it's the next generation of lean, and you can be more nimble and adaptable. And with the manufacturing talent shortage, it can help address some of the potential worker shortages working forward. But some of the downsides are that, the skill sets to fix the processes and the advanced technical solutions means having a deeper bench of problem solving for more complex problems, which has a cost associated with it as well.
Yeah, that wasn't on my list of things I wanted to talk with you about, Christina, but I'd like to talk about that for a minute because there's a part of that I find really fascinating. On this same podcast series, I've interviewed some of the most well-known writers in lean manufacturing, and one of the things that's come up specifically with Dr. Jeffrey Liker, who wrote the Toyota Way, was that he and a lot of his colleagues who are writers and gurus of lean view Industry 4.0 very skeptically. And that's because it's technologically focused, and it, in a sense, kind of removes the person from the problem, which is very anti-lean. And yet, I see it the way you do. Well, it's not that he didn't see it that way. It's actually he does see it that way. It's just his skepticism was rooted in the fact that a lot of people who are really promoting Industry 4.0 as a purely technical play think that the algorithms and the sensors are just going to automatically solve our problems. And I think he most lean experts know better than that. So what do you think is the ideal convergence of those two things? And especially you running a pretty large manufacturing organization, you have a fair level of control to actually see how this gets played out within your own operations. So how do you see that convergence?
Yeah, I think it's, we look at it as aligned. We have 3 initiatives as our overall organization that we've been really focused in on. One is continue our drive of innovation, so customer-driven innovation, bringing innovative solutions, providing value, reducing costs. The second one is employer of choice, having the safest, healthiest workforce with opportunities for learning and development and pathways for engaged employees. But the last one is operational excellence. And operational excellence is really, for us, it encompasses the lean journey and the journey towards Industry 4.0. And it's where I would put this in the category as well of how do we look at our systems and our processes and utilize the data that's coming out of those to make ourselves better. We actually had one of the first MES systems. We homegrew a system called MODS that gives us information on the basics, OEE, scrap, and downtime. And we found that the more data that we have, the more trends that we can analyze, that you can look at it by shift, you can look at it by press, you can look at it by machine, because you don't always know where the data is going to tell you to look next. And so by having that that information, that system, we were able to start to be able to predict where issues might be down the road and be able to get from just gathering data to predicting the future. And so we've been doing that for over 20 years with our system that we grew. And now a lot of people have MES systems. A lot more people have dashboards. There's all sorts of ERP add-ons and other things. But I like to think that we were some of the earlier ones, and I think it went back even before the 20. I think we as many as 40 years ago, we were starting with some of the data collection and trend analysis to be able to. But I think it's not the bells and whistles. It's getting back to the basics of the OEE, scrap downtime, the key things that as a manufacturer drive inefficiency and waste, and then being able to look at those in lots of different and interesting ways.
Yeah, I agree. Because a lot of the problems are not that complicated. It's just that in my experience, they're blind. I mean, it sounds like you definitely have a head start on this. But I just saw a customer presentation recently. I won't name them, of course, but there's just so much low-hanging fruit. This company increased their mean time between failures by double over the last 12 months across a whole plant. And you sort of have to almost scratch your head that that's possible, that there's that much, there's that much blind spot, lack of awareness, that it would be possible to change the way that you're doing things by being aware. But that's been my experience, is there is just an incredible lack of information flow, especially about machine health, that one niche of
Absolutely.
it specifically. You see that too?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we are buying some of the newer equipment on our injection molding, and really finding that we can leapfrog with some of the new data that's available. But also, we've been able to run pretty efficiently on our old systems, and it's not all this full suite of what you can monitor. It's making sure you're monitoring the right data.
Right. Yeah, nobody seems to have a shortage of data, right? It's a shortage of knowing what to do, or insights, or whatever. Well,
Yeah,
that's great. But so you're finding value in it, is what I hear in that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's great. I don't know if you know how rare that is, but it's something that we've studied when we're engaging with customers, is that it's increasingly pretty well documented that a lot of the projects being implemented as IoT, IIoT, Industry 4.0 are actually not that successful.
Hmm.
And in fact, yeah, there's one study that we uh, watched pretty closely, where they concluded that only 8% of IIoT implementations had, quote, game-changing results, or a powerful impact, however they worded it. Which I mean, from what you're describing, it sounds like you are describing that you've done initiatives that have had a pretty major impact on the way you operate.
Absolutely. And I think it is back to those basics, the OEE, scrap, downtime, the key indicators that can allow you to get to the point quicker. And I really do look at it as the next iteration of lean. And the best way to look at lean as well is you have to have stable processes so that you can build on those and just continuously improve. One of the things that I love about our founder and the culture that he's created is that it is one of continuous improvement. And a lot of times continuous improvement doesn't mean step change. It can. And I think that's where you're saying, the game changing results, but it's about a continuous daily improvement such that, the next day is better than the previous day, and the next day is better than that. And so even if you're just chipping away at something, as long as you're not sliding back on that journey, you're able to have better and better processes and systems and results as a result over time.
Definitely. Well, you have me thinking now, Christina. I wouldn't be shocked at all. In fact, I think I would almost expect that there would be a correlation between the companies that really do get powerful results out of deploying new technologies, and those that already have an attitude of continuous improvement, or a lean focus. I bet you there's a lot of crossover there, or cross pollination, because we definitely see that. I mean, we routinely go into factories where someone else has deployed similar technology, whether it's software or sensors or something, and it's just collecting dust. They're not doing anything with it. Um, and even among our customers, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And you can give them data and even insights, but if they don't do anything about it, you don't really accomplish anything. Whereas a company or a person with an improvement attitude, is going to be more successful. So it sounds like you've definitely are living that internally.
Absolutely. And I actually know exactly what you're talking about because we did a manufacturing excellence tour of best practices, and it was a facility we visited. I won't share the name, but they had a very, very expensive system that they had put in place that was automated, that brought the whip to the location just in time, and had all these things. And it had broken down so much that they had abandoned using it and gone back to carts, where they paid somebody to push the carts around because it was more reliable than this system that they had poured millions of dollars into. So I definitely agree that there are a lot of trends of failed Industry 4.0 applications where you might have gone a little bit more robust than, or more difficult or complex than the application needs. So
Yeah, I bet there's some there's some serious learning that's embedded in that. I think. I
absolutely.
Yeah, boy, I've seen that too. It's fun. I've been it's funny, the interesting stuff are the ones you don't want to name. But I was at a wastewater plant in a big city, and they were running their it was either compressors or centrifuges, or I think it was centrifuges, and they had a very sophisticated uh, system actually from one of our competitors with lights. Just it was boiled down to just like red light, green light, and they had duct tape over the lights, just because I guess because they didn't find them to be accurate enough, and so it was just viewed as a hassle rather than actually using the information to solve the problem that was surely occurring.
Well, and
Pretty
absolutely,
wild.
if you have a sensor that's faulty and it causes you to have, wasted product, you could end up with more issues, based on the sensor fault than the actual improper product. Yeah, there's a lot of examples of that.
Definitely. Well, Christina, I want to come back to the triple bottom line thing, because what I hear when you were describing that is that similar. So there's these 52% of people who who think that manufacturing is unappealing, and yet we who are in it know that it's appealing. So we've got Penn State's rolling out these videos to help show how cool it is. We're doing the same thing, but for you, you're aligning it with the triple bottom line focus and basically pointing out that there's a higher purpose in it as well, a higher purpose in doing this work. Do I understand that correctly?
Absolutely. I think, our triple bottom line and the B Corporation and even the women owned business helps us stand out a bit to potential employees and be able to share more transparently our journey and where we are on our journey. And I think people respect that. But also, we've been looking at different pools of people. And one of the things, as a nation, we have about 40 million people in poverty and 20 million people with former felonies. And unfortunately, those issues disproportionately impact people of color. And we have so an expected 3.5 million jobs that are needed in manufacturing could be more than made up in those other pools. So our U.S. incarceration rate per capita is higher than any other country in the world. And coming out of prison, people have limited opportunities. Only 400 of the 9,000 coming out in Michigan this year will have state-issued ID cards, which means that they will have difficulty securing housing, transportation, and jobs. And many are denied even temporary jobs by employers because they might be barred from temp agencies. So going back to jail is 90% less likely if a formerly incarcerated individual has a stable job and a home. And reentering citizens typically stay in their roles longer, 7 years on average, versus the millennial counterparts, which are 2 years on average. So one way we're addressing the labor issues through prisoner reentry work. And we've hired almost 1,000 former felons since the start of our reentry program. And we've got some incredible success stories. Jahan McKinley started on a projection floor in his 30s, and it was his first job since being incarcerated in his teens. And he has done a TEDx talk in Makatawa called Transitional Rebirth, and he's now writing a book. He's transcended to become a plant manager and a CES leader. He's now married with 2 young kids and leading some of our work in Brownsville, and just incredible success stories that we've had from supporting people and looking to people who may have been overlooked in the past by the workforce. And so I think it's a both and of trying to attract and court the millennials with our practices, but also give people pathways for a career from pools that may have not historically been looked to, and also in the process, hopefully solving some societal problems and cyclical issues.
That's fascinating. I mean, that's something that I'm really quite interested in as well. But although, as you describe it, I haven't found that's something we've not found ways to like get it to work yet. What do you find works? So you've got this, you've got a huge population of people that have been convicted of a felony or living in poverty, haven't had access to education, and yet you have your own workforce issues, just like everyone does. How do you get that to click? How do you find the right people, and how do you get them interested, and how do you get them prepared?
Absolutely. One of the things about this, in the same vein of continuous improvement, this is something we've been working at since the 90s, and it's due to our founders' direction of what we can do to help people. And so it started with a welfare to career program, and we actually ended up winning a Ron Brown Award for corporate citizenship for the work that we did back in the 90s, and we had 3 or 4 false starts on this program where we tried and we just couldn't retain people. There was a partnership we did with a local fast food restaurant where they'd start there and then come to Cascade. And there were various different things, but they all seemed to fail from one form or the other. And a big piece of it was the typical things. It was transportation, childcare, other types of support. And so one of the turning points in our program was when we had a on-site DHS caseworker, and the ability for that to solve so many different problems. One was, there often are a lot of resources, but people don't know how to access them. There might be childcare assistance, there might be transportation assistance, but the being able to access that's very difficult. Also, when you look at our frontline leaders or plant managers or people that are the closest to the employees, they may not have the capabilities themselves to understand where those resources lie. In some cases, we may not even be able to, as an employer, ask a question about, are you pregnant? Are you being abused? Are there things that you need support with? And so, an on-site caseworker was one of the real turning points for our program. We did get public transportation to come out to our facility from downtown Grand Rapids, which was a huge help. And we're now working with the Wheels to Work program through Hope Network, where they'll pick people up at their home and bring them to work on a regular basis. And the employer helps pay some of that, but it's a not-for-profit. And we have now it's evolved into the Source, which is an employee assistance program where caseworkers rotate to various different organizations. So we were one of the first ones in the area, but we now have over 500 companies that are hiring former felons in West Michigan. And our recidivism rate is one of the lowest in the country. So we've had incredible progress on this front. And some of it is that employee resource network and the ability to have access to social workers. The other piece that we've had is our anti-racism policy. We have all of our leaders go through the Institute for Healing Racism, and we do diversity theater with all employees. Because one of the things we were finding that we were not retaining people is because we weren't a welcoming environment. And so creating a more welcoming environment through education and orientation and ongoing training has been another way that we've been able to increase our attraction and retention. And our retention rate and our prisoner entry and welfare career program is up in the 90% range. And we've got great success stories, as I mentioned before, in this area.
Well, that's great. I mean, that just on so many levels, addressing just some deep-seated societal issues, but also addressing the very real needs of the economy. It is just, you put those, talk about solving an important problem. That's pretty amazing progress, Christina. How has it been this year? I mean, this has been a year of some pretty high profile, racial tension, social tension. Has that put you in the forefront as a thought leader, or has it made things complicated? How's it been?
It's interesting. I like to refer to it as a racial awakening. I think that half of the population of the U.S. has been dealing with this for many years, and the other half is now awakening to the issues that are addressing us as a nation. And so I think we definitely have a few more capabilities internally to talk about the issues and be open to have a dialogue about them. And we were written up in a Wall Street Journal article actually recently on the how to be an anti-racism organization, alongside with a couple of high-profile Ben and Jerry's and other groups that are on this journey as well. But I think it is a journey, and I think a big piece of it is just being open to having the tough conversations and dialogue, and remembering that if you boil it back to the core of everyone deserves to feel respected and valued within your organization, and you keep it within your four walls without going into political mires or other things, and really bring it back to that core fundamental. I think that can serve you very well as any organization.
Definitely. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm also curious on this within the same conversation, talking about, felons. Do you go as far as to directly interface with prisons and have programs that are reaching out, or how do you interface with that population?
There are actually some great programs in West Michigan that have developed as a result of some of the work and the pull that's coming from the employers in our area. And so the Hanlon prison has a training program, and actually these folks get snapped up right away after they come through the technical training program as part of the prisoner reentry work. And so it is exciting, some of the retraining and the focus on technical skill sets, which are in demand. Maintenance, for example, is a skill set that our average age in our maintenance team is getting up there, and it's not being replaced as quickly as some of the other areas. And so there are some training programs going on with the local prison system, and I think there's different designations of crimes as well. And this is more lower end of the spectrum, and especially now with the legalization of marijuana, a lot of the people that we are incarcerating as a nation are somehow related to the marijuana industry, and so it's just very interesting that they're not necessarily, you put people into a bucket of all bad who are in jail, and obviously they've done something to deserve to be there, but at the same time there's changing regulation and landscape, which makes whole industries that used to be punishable offenses are now legal. So it's kind of an interesting piece as well.
Yeah, definitely a wild time that we're living in right now, but very, very real issues. I mean, I'm struck by the just such a proactive approach to solving your own workforce issues, but the same thing we all face. I just hear so many companies talk about, the retiring workforce. I hear very few companies giving examples of what they're doing today to actually solve it. And I hear a lot of companies who just sort of, think that technology will save the day. And, here I am running a technology company that offers part of that, but I just don't think I think what you're doing sounds like the better path. Is it's technology and people together. It's not just technology. Otherwise, it's just never going to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. I should these interviews always go so quickly. I should start wrapping up, and I know your time is always scarce, I'm sure, being the CEO of a large organization. I wonder, just a couple, if you don't mind, just a couple questions that I like to ask when I do these interviews. The first one is the biggest problem. You're doing some very amazing things in terms of the triple bottom line, and also running just a very successful company, which in itself is challenging enough, especially this year. But you're knocking down some of these really big problems that are facing industry, and also facing these changes of technology, and also facing society. What is the biggest one? What's the one that you wake up and you feel most motivated to solve, that you wish you could just eradicate?
No, I think talent really is the issue that we're going to have to wrestle with as we move forward, and along with climate change, I would throw that in there as a we went up north for Thanksgiving and there was no snow, and that's not a crazy thing, but we used to go up for Thanksgiving and there'd be feet of snow at this time of year. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen with our environment, and if that truly goes south, that we have no other options as a human race. And so I think that the talent and the ability to build bridges out of poverty and create opportunities for folks, that's what personally motivates me. And then also on the planet side, we're working up to what we can do to be zero waste to landfill. We're working on converting processes from chrome electroplating to films. We're working at what we can do to be cradle to cradle and really be part of the circularity of, people think of plastics and they think of ocean plastics and all of these horrible things. But when you look at a truly sustainable model, we bring back a lot of our trash containers and recycle bins at end of life, put them back into the product. And we actually have launched an eco cart with post-consumer recycled content, and plastics can be one of the most sustainable and reusable circular economy solutions. And so trying to think about how we can be a circular economy and build bridges out of poverty to create new talent opportunities are probably my two major things.
Yeah, I love the way you describe it and that they're interrelated. And I do, by the way, I got to see some of the things on your website today. I do have one of your carts in my garage, 3 of them
Perfect.
actually. Yeah, so thank you for that. But also just that you're already using post-consumer plastic in those. It's so much is possible, but you just need people. You need problem-solving people to actually make it happen. That's the thing that
Absolutely.
I see that everywhere. So the second question is where do you think we're headed? I mean, so you go up north and the snow's melted, but then you see all these things, and obviously we know there's a lot of, there's just a constant flood of data about, climate change and where the world is headed, but also a lot of disagreement about it. And then where industry, like if you look out 10 years, the combination of maybe talent and climate change, where do you think we're going to be? Do you personally think it's getting worse or better, or is it too hard to say when you look that far out?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I love sitting around and trying to think about what's going to happen in the future, and trying to understand. I mean, it all depends on our actions, right, and what we do right now. That's going to predict that. I mean, I know at least we from an automotive perspective, I know electric vehicles are accelerating. Yeah, I think we've hit a turning point, maybe anticipated in 2026, where there's really going to be a movement from ICE to EV. And in my perspective, that fundamentally reduced costs, and people are increasingly ready. So I think that that's gonna be a big shoe in this whole climate change piece, is if we can get people to electric vehicles. I know solar panels are becoming more and more affordable for personal houses as well as business applications. And so if wide adoption of EV and solar photovoltaic, I think that there could be a true inflection point in the in the world in terms of climate change. I also think if more organizations tap into the 40 million people who are in poverty and the 20 million people with former felonies, and we really work to eradicate those problems, we can address that second talent shortage issue as well. So I mean, I think it's really up to us, and whether we drag our heels and try to do things the way we've always done it until it's too late, or if we jump on and move forward and try to tackle these issues.
Definitely. Yeah, the one part on the EV side of it, the one thing I would say is I've been driving a Tesla for the last couple of years, and we're also monitoring. A lot of the the big traditional manufacturers are really going all in. These are serious plans to build these vehicles at scale, and we're in the heart of it. We have sensors in the factories where they're building these new EV models at the big three. I think it's actually going to go faster than most people think.
Absolutely.
This is from my own observation, but the one question I ask anybody that drives a full on modern electric vehicle, you ask them if they're likely to get an internal combustion car next or stick with the EV. It's been for me 100% EV. You just don't talk to people that are interested in going back. And I think that's a huge indicator, because I think it's going to be more of a tidal wave than a gradual creep. At least that's what I
Well,
hope and expect.
absolutely. And I think, when they were the two trends that everybody was talking about, autonomous and electric, autonomous is continuing, but I think the momentum is stalling because fundamentally it adds cost. And I don't think customers are necessarily ready to not be driving, whereas electric, it really isn't that different of a driving experience. We also have a Tesla in our garage, and people always talk about, are you going to have range anxiety? But how often in a day are you driving more than 300 miles? And plus, you never have to fill up your tank just on a regular basis, because you leave each morning with a full 300 miles or however long you need to go. And so people don't talk about that either, of the fact that, you wake up each morning with a full tank of gas. Totally.
I have gas station anxiety. That's what I always say. Really, if you were used to this way of doing it and had never been exposed to it, you going and waiting in line and pumping at a gas station, I have serious anxiety about that. And also not being able to go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. I mean, that's the thing. Just it's convenient that they're also better.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I love that painting of the picture, Christina. Especially there's a lot of people who have ideas, but you're actually you're doing these things for a big company, and I really commend you for the things that you're doing across the board, the talent workforce thing, and just being on the right side of implementing these engineering changes that can actually solve problems. It's wonderful to hear. One last question I like to ask. Can you tell me something that you hold to be true, something that's a truth to you that most people would disagree with you about?
Well, I unfortunately, I still think that the mentality of triple bottom line is something that there's not a fundamental agreement on it yet. I think when I talk to people, I am passionate about balancing people, planet, and profit. And they'll never be in a complete balance, but we want to better our people, we want to better our planet, and we want to better our profitability. And so often I hear people talk about it as if it's a trade-off. And as to better your people and planet, you have to donate, or you have to give up of your bottom line, and that it cannot be a both and. I think people are very black or white and would fight me on, you can't have good people and good environment without sacrificing your profitability. And what I think, even what you're saying about with the electric vehicle trend, other things, look at Elon Musk. He's not sacrificing profitability to be better for the environment and other things. And so I hope that starts to change, that people start to see that, doing these things and balancing the three and having a focus on it, it's not a trade-off, but that they can be reinforcing. And I think that's something that I hold true, that I don't think everybody is on the same page with yet.
I think that's a great answer. I want to agree with you, but the truth is that it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard to commit and believe. I have a group of CEOs that I get together with, and I have a real good friend. His name's Scott Woods. He runs a company called Westeret Software, and he is a certified B Corp and has been for years, and is really committed to triple bottom line. And he talks to us about it routinely, and yet it's a very difficult thing to commit yourself to. It's like a leap of faith, I think, and I had one that I haven't made yet. So I really appreciate having a chance to talk to you, and I think it's an amazing story that people need to hear.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for helping us get the word out there and continue to spread the journey. And it's great what you're doing. I think your podcasts are fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Nope, that's it.
Wonderful. Well, Christina, this has been a real pleasure talking with you today. This is Jeremy Frank, and it's the Industrial Transformation Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Industrial Transformation Podcast, a production of Business Builders Media. Learn more about how KCF can help you on your industrial transformation journey at kcftech.com, and check out more shows on businessbuildersmedia.com.